What's a very disturbing fact almost nobody knows? There's 21 to 46 million slaves living right now.
Any further info on this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that like 4% of the Mauritanian population is enslaved. That means about 160,000 slaves. Yikes. Edit. The enslaved population of India is about 8 million, 0.6% of the population.
I didn't know India had slaves.
My wife worked with an organization that worked on helping them in India. She said the stories she got were way too disturbing and usually coupled with sex trafficking and child abuse. She couldn't do it for long.
The average slave today is around $90 in today's money. Black slaves used to be worth around $40,000. Adjusted for inflation, slaves were for rich people.
How can this be true? $90 is a couple of days' pay for the poorest people on earth.
My guess would be that slaves are just oversaturating the market today.
Even slaves aren't safe from the dangers of market capitalism.
Maybe because they're illegal nearly everywhere, so they can't be sold or bought openly, and so it drives their price down as their use is only possible within certain regions, which are already poor and lawless.
I wish drug prices were like this.
If you get bitten by a human, you absolutely have to go to the hospital right away, because the amount of deadly bacteria in any given person's mouth could actually kill you, if it enters your bloodstream.
If a human bites your dog, be careful. Every full moon he will put on clothes, try to barbecue, and complain about taxes.
Aren't there theories that say how we were gonna evolve to have venomous bites?
I think we already have. I had a friend who was bitten by a crackhead and he didn't get to the hospital soon enough, so he ended up with many of his organs shutting down due to sepsis. If your group of friends is comprised of 5 or more people, chances are, at least one of you will die before you're 40. In child porn cases, someone has to actually watch the video beginning to end, so they can testify about it in court to seal a conviction.
A friend of mine works for the federal government and his job each day is to watch child pornography so that they can prove that the person was in fact creating or distributing child porn. It's a f***up job.
Do they give him any therapy?
I'm not super sure. I know that he has to do evaluations every once in a while to make sure he's still fit. He does say that, statistically, most people in the position only last 3 years. They get paid horribly to do this job, so there's not much incentive to stay. I know for him, each time they catch a person makes it very well worth it for him.
In the UK, they have what they call sanity screens running at the same time. They can pause the video and look up at the sanity screens. They are live feeds of everyday life, people going about their lives, shopping, things like that. It's so they can take a break and look at something normal. It used to be believed that babies as old as 15 months couldn't feel pain. As a result, doctors would perform surgery without anesthesia. Doctors used muscle relaxants on the infants to prevent squirming, essentially paralyzing the babies for the duration of the procedure. How long ago was this, you ask? Reports indicate that this continued up until the 1980s.
As an infant in the late 80s, I fell and split the top of my scalp open. Local doctor refused to numb my skin because, according to him, babies that little, I was maybe a year old, if that, don't feel pain. I'm very glad I can't remember back that far, because it would probably have really f***ed me up.
This is ridiculous. My daughter dislocated her shoulder at like 9 months and she screamed bloody murder.
A toddler's adult teeth are right below their eyes.
I just looked up a picture of a toddler's skull, and all I gotta say is, what the actual
According to the FBI, over 40% of murders go unsolved, meaning if you get killed, there's a pretty good chance the person who killed you will not spend a day in jail.
Bad news for you, good news for me.
I think about the likelihood of a murder being solved in the small town where I live. Sometimes, for example, say when 911 gets called after the discovery, it's not going to be some TV/CSI scene, where the detective is like,
but what do I see here? This hair is from a rare breed of Mexican cat, that's only sold at one exotic breed pet shop.
And then they go on to check sale records and track down the killer. Here, it would be more like, our one and only fat-ass cop shows up after about an hour or so, and just sort of bumbles around contaminating the shit out of any possible evidence, not doing any good at all, and if by chance a larger department actually stepped in, to do some investigating, the scene would be garbage. I could murder, all damn day.
One of the first symptoms of heart disease can be sudden death.
It's funny, because it can also be one of the last symptoms.
Yeah, the symptoms will last for the rest of your life.
A vitamin D deficiency can make you suicidal, and deficiencies among adults is very common, like more than 50% of the population in the US.
My vitamin D number was single digits when I went to see my doctor because I felt depressed. I now take a big weekly dose along with a diet change and more sunlight to feel normal. If I hadn't gone to the doctor when I did, I might not have been able to face another winter.
Mine too. My doctor was shocked and said it was the lowest he'd ever seen. It's crazy how much it makes a difference mentally.
The first face transplant was for an 8-year-old girl named Sandy Kwa, who got her entire face ripped off by getting her hair caught in a thresher in 1994. The parents came in with her face in 2 pieces in a plastic bag. The transplant was a success, and the girl grew up and is studying medicine. And if you've ever wondered what a face torn off looks like, they have photos of it that aren't bloody, but very disturbing. Here you go. Links in the description. On average, about 30 people die in the US annually in elevator-related incidents. Due to fresh drinking water being so scarce on the Galapagos Islands, some bird species, such as the Galapagos hawk, have adapted by drinking the blood of other animals. The Romans used to torture people by having goats lick their feet. Goats like salt, so they would soak people's feet in salt water. Eventually the goat's tongue was rough enough that the skin would wear away. Then you'd have a wound with salt trickling in. Organophosphates, including the chemical weapon sarin gas, work by inhibiting your muscles' ability to relax. Your muscles basically constrict and can't unconstrict, causing what feels like a muscle cramp through your entire body. Your arms, your chest, your eyes, your tongue, everything. It most frequently kills via asphyxiation, because you can't exhale. Surviving means a permanent, irrecoverable loss of motor function, even with rapid medical treatment.
Also, it was originally discovered while chemists were trying to make a more effective insecticide. I'd say they succeeded. There are 8 nukes that are missing all around the world.
Oh, that's actually not all of them. According to this video, there's a grand total of 51 nuclear weapons lost in the world, 40 Russian, 11 American. One of them is apparently half a mile off the coast of Georgia, and the city of Savannah is within its blast radius.
The United States accidentally dropped a nuke in North Carolina, and it was found hanging on a tree, luckily not detonated.
The sun dies in about 5 billion years, but Earth will be habitable for only another 500 million years, because the sun's luminosity increases gradually, turning the planet into a dead, scorching rock relatively soon.
Bold of you to assume Earth will be habitable for 500 million years.
He didn't specify for us that ant-controlling fungus will be okay.
And roaches.
And Cher.
And Keith Richards.
As recently as the early 1800s, people ate parts of corpses, believing them to have medicinal properties. Blood, powder ground up from the human skull, and human fat were all thought to be cures for various ailments. Arguably, it still goes on today, with the practice of consuming placenta for its dubious health benefits.
There was a fad for eating mummies. It turns out that there's a limited supply of mummies, so people started making mummies for other people to eat. You are more likely to die on your way to buy a lottery ticket than you are to win the lottery.
Even more funny, it's more likely that you win the lottery than you win anything worthwhile in the McDonald's monopoly that comes up every once in a while. This means that obese gambling addicts are likely dying on their way to order their next Monopoly ticket at McDonald's.
This is especially true as the McDonald's Monopoly game was rigged for years. A guy who worked for the company that ran it funneled the winning pieces to his friends/family.
Veterinary nursing has one of the highest suicide rates of any profession.
I used to work as a receptionist at an animal hospital, and I completely understand why. The shit they see and put themselves through in order to save an animal's life, and then to be told to their face that, because it can't be done for free, they really don't give a shit about the animal.
When your dog chews a squeaky toy and plays with it, they enjoy it because it reminds them of killing a small animal. There's over 200 dead bodies on Mount Everest, and they're used as waypoints for other climbers.
I'd say the amount of trash people leave there is also pretty scary.
As a cancer researcher, I was fascinated to learn that the most common cancer is lung cancer. The majority of the patients were, of course, smokers, but that's not the worst part. The second biggest cause was secondhand smoking, usually from a close relative or spouse who is a smoker. So millions of people are unknowingly leading their relatives, children and spouse towards death because of their smoking habits.
My father was, and still is, a heavy smoker when I was growing up, despite multiple doctors telling him not to smoke around his kids. All three of us have asthma, and I have a form of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease that was exacerbated by his smoking. Thanks, Dad.
Even if there are intelligent aliens, the universe is so massive and vast that due to the speed of light and physical limits, the human race will most likely die alone.
Don't say that, please. I'm so optimistic about meeting aliens.
If you were to put the entire lifespan of the universe, from the Big Bang to the final heat death, onto a 24-hour clock, at the universe's current age, estimated 13.8 billion years, we would not have reached the end of the first 30 seconds. If you were to go into the far future, past the point where there are no more solar systems, the planets have either been destroyed or become rogue planets, where there are no more galaxies, everything either being swallowed up by black holes or being ejected from the galaxy, no more anything of normal matter due to proton decay, and no more black holes due to Hawking radiation, even here at this point, you would not have reached 12 o'clock/noon on our universe clock. The universe will spend most of its life as a dark, cold, empty void. You would be unlikely to find a single surviving subatomic particle in an area the size of the current observable universe, estimated at 98 billion light-years across, until the background temperature reaches -460 degrees or 0 Kelvin, at which point entropy wins, time becomes meaningless, and the universe remains in a cold, dead state for all eternity.
Sir, this is just a Wendy's drive-thru.
The people must know. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and ring the notification bell.